So this week, we're really running back the same list that we did last week. Reason why I'm still trying to debate figure out where my stance is on 3 Eidolons versus 4. Does this feel like the right number? I have seen somebody else recently did well with a list with 3 Eidolons, and it's an idea that, while a small change does intrigue me, the 4th Eidolon, or drawing multiple Eidolons, has always felt kind of sketch unless you're in a matchup where you're very far ahead or your opponent has a bunch of removal spells and you get to go like 1-drop into Eidolon, hoping that last Eidolon sticks. Other than those situations, I'm usually happy to draw maybe 1 Eidolon in a game, and so 3 in that context makes a lot of sense. What I would love to probably replace it with is a 9th 1-drop. But the problem is most of the 1-drops kind of honestly suck as far as what Burn's game plan is trying to execute. Something like Dragon Rage Chandler, a little bit awkward. The fact that it doesn't have haste. Same thing with Soulscar Mage. Other cards you can consider, cards like Clever Luminmancer, obviously is only good when you're casting a bunch of spells. Other 1-drops, I can remember their names. The one that whenever you attack and deal damage, you have to return a land to your hand. And then the other one that is basically like a Viashino Sandstalker. You have to constantly replay it each turn. We tried both of those on the main MTG Nexus channel when I was doing more Burn content over there. And they all felt kind of middling or terrible. So I would really love there to be some type of hasty 1-drop red-based creature that just kind of ties Burn together, but alas, this is what we have. So still running the 3 Lightning Helixes. I shaved one of the Skull Cracks to go back to 20 lands. We're back to running Osakenzen in the list. This is a card that doesn't come up much, but when it does, it's fine. A lot of people, I asked a question in the competitive Burn thing, and there was a lot of different varied answers about 18, 19, 20 lands. Most people swear by 20 lands. Some run 19, some run 18 with DRC. But Osakenzen has been relevant in some spots. And it's a cheaper option than something like Den of the Bugbear. Den of the Bugbear also kind of has some diminishing returns with things like Inspiring Advantage, simply because you have too many lands that are tapped after 2 and 3, and sometimes you actually do need a 4th land to enter untapped to double spell on a key turn against some of the control decks and such. But it's kind of all the changes we made to the list, and I know it's really kind of minute things at this point that we're kind of adjusting with the list. Every once in a while I will shake up the list and just start from scratch, but this is the kind of one we've been iterating on for quite a while. I still like the couple exquisite Firecrafts, especially with all these blue decks in the format. Whether it be creativity to a certain degree, whether it be Murktide, whether it be Living End, all these different blue decks that just are relying on that counter spell to keep them alive during a key swing turn. Just being able to punch through the last 4 damage can be relevant in a lot of spots. Does it really swing those matchups a lot? I don't think so, but it is a card that is worth trying and iterating on. I know a lot of lists have been running 3-path, and I just don't see the purpose. I used to be a huge proponent of Path to Exile when the answer to dealing with Burn's creatures was things like Tarmogoyf and Death Shadow. But simply now that there's more and more removal spells and you're not really pushing through your creatures, I don't see as much of a reason for Path to Exile in lists anymore. Now obviously there are some things that buys you some time against Murktide and such, if you can remove their creature, that is, but it is something to consider, whether we should even be running Path at all, but I do think 2 is a fine number. Sanctifier, basically every time I leave home without it, I regret it. We instantly run into Dredge or some type of Murktide list or some type of Scam list or some type of Jeskai or Gruul Breach. And this card's just really relevant in a lot of different spots. Also the random Reanimator, or sometimes when the creativity deck has to go on the reanimation plan, if they're on the black splash more than the white splash. Sanctifier just has a lot of spots where it's reasonable. Smash, you could conceivably run some number of Wear Tears in this slot. I tend to like Smash unless I know I'm going to be staring down like a Living End deck or Dredge, which are a lot of decks that are running Leyline Sanctity right now. Other than that, I prefer Smash over them. And then Rolling Vortex, just Cascade decks, life gain, kind of covers it all. So that said, let's get into some matches and see how we roll out today. Back for watch one. The Discord split I'm Team Idol on. Nice. Alright, this hand. This hand is very... Like, if we go with... Because GG released a thing many months ago about if you have 10 points of burn in your hand, you can keep the hand. And so this meets that metric, but I just never keep a 4-land hand unless it's like a dynamic start. So I could regret mulliganing this, but I just don't think you can keep a 4-lander even with the Sunbay Canyon. Immediately into the 0-lander. Alright, so this is a keepable. Put back... I guess we go with put back Skewer and Bolt. And kind of hope to high roll here. Leading on Sunbay Canyon simply to be able to trigger Searing Blaze in case. Alright, well, we're up against Gobbo lands, so... or a variant of Gobbo lands. I think I'm just going to play Skewer the Critics and not crack my fetch land currently. Because we're up against Gobbos. This is definitely a matchup where speed is somewhat relevant. Immediately draw another land to punish us. So I'm going to attack here, even though we're literally gaining nothing. If they double block, we'll blaze in response. But I think they're just going to chump. Oh, okay. Well, that works. We're basically never getting through again anyway, so I'm fine with them doing the thing. That basically clears their board. Now we just have to worry about Snoop, basically. Snoop and Sling-Gang Lieutenant are the two things we care about. It looks like they have Harbinger, so we're in some trouble. Because they'll have the mana to cast Lieutenant, and then the game's effectively over. They go for Snoop. I don't feel like that's the correct play. I think I just fetch another mountain here. Obviously this is dangerous if we... Obviously, if they have Lieutenant, we're in a world of trouble. But I'm not afraid of Snoop this turn. We have to top deck a spell next turn. Okay, Cavern of Souls, sure. Opponent's got at least another Swamp in hand and an Arid Mesa, so their hand is actually pretty bad. Or, I should say the known cards in hand are pretty bad. We kind of need to top deck a burn spell here. Okay. Alright, well. Very fortunate that we escaped. So Goblins is a weird matchup. Some versions have Chalice. Obviously, Modern Goblins. So we are up against Rage Heart 7. I have no particular recent finishes with the deck. So, do I play around Chalice is a question mark. I obviously don't like Eidolon, especially on the draw in this matchup. Sanctifier is fine, but not like super great. Path can be reasonable in some spots, although they just have so many guys to get through. Deflecting Palm really doesn't feel like the matchup for it. Most of their dudes are little shiters. Smash is the one card that I think I'm going to bring in a couple copies of, and then risk going down Boros Charms. Obviously, Boros Charm is great in terms of just raw damage, but a lot of times when I'm looking to cut spells in a creature-based matchup, that's one I usually cut. Could consider Lava Spike, but for curve purposes, I usually prefer Spike over Boros Charm, although Boros Charm is just more raw damage per card. So, things to consider. Yep, GG indeed. This hand is perfectly acceptable. Whether we lead on Dork or Bolt depends on what their turn 1 play is. Obviously, if they have like Ignoble Hierarch as their 1 drop, we have to kill it probably. If it's Ether Vial, it's kind of whatever. Yeah. Alright, so lead on Goblin Guide. Opponent with a Munitions Expert, which is mildly scary if they have 1 drop here. Yeah, so they can flash in a Munitions Expert. So we're probably going to have to go with Swift Spear, not cast a spell, force them to play the Munitions Expert to try to kill something. And obviously if they have a 1 drop, they get to kill a dude, and it's kind of whatever here. Okay. Sure, let's let this into play. That's fine. Munitions Expert, reveal another Munitions Expert. Okay, got it. Mm-hmm. Could we die here? No, because Snoop has to have haste in some way or other. Okay. Boggart Harbinger, sure. Obviously they could bring in Munitions Expert, which is annoying. So I'm not sure our creatures are going to do a whole lot more damage. Yeah, Lieutenant's just... And they're playing this right, they're just gaining life. Mm-hmm. Alright, Lieutenant brings 2 Dorkos, that's a guaranteed 3 life. It's the last point of damage Goblin Guy will ever get through if they just don't chump block. Okay, that goes to 3, presumably. If they have a land, they're just going to slam Sling-Gang Lieutenant. Matron. Okay. Matron getting what? Harbinger. Getting Snoop. Alright, so the game's effectively over. This is a matchup that I was very happy to see kind of fade from the meta. That doesn't make sense. Unless their card in hand's yet another Harbinger? Okay. Had 3 Harbingers this game. That's terrifying. Oh, I'm not saying the deck is bad by any means. I'm just saying as a burn player, it's a deck you don't want to see. And I've actually seen more Azorius humans lately than I have goblins. That's magic card. Kind of hoping for a Searing Blaze here, I guess. Something to remove this, otherwise we're just dead. Okay, so they move the Vial to 4, play Sling-Gang Lieutenant, Kiki-Jiki copy a bunch of times, and Rhinos. So I presume they know how their combo works, so we're just going to concede. Those of you who don't know, they make a bunch of copies with Kiki-Jiki before they would draw them, then they violin Sling-Gang Lieutenant and kill us. So all into game 3 indeed. Still don't like Eidolon in this matchup. I think a couple copies of Smash is fine, simply as precaution, especially against something like Chalice of the Void, which some of these decks run. So it's not a terrible hedge. Well, I know you know the Goblin combo, but somebody watching this on YouTube later might not. So I can't always presume that the player watching the game understands what's going on. His hand is dubious. I don't think it's a hand we put back, but I don't like it by any means. No, there is not. Actually, there's 2 YouTube channels, but the main one for the whatchamacallit now is, I'll link it here in a second as soon as this game's over. Or Marshall's kind of whatever. Do I even bother playing Goblin Guide? Yeah, I guess we hold it back as a blocker in all honesty. They have a 1-drop. Okay, they do have Ignoble on their list. Well, just lets that die, which makes sense. With another Snoop D-O double G. Nothing we can do about that. It's just dead. D-E-D dead. So we're taking 2, going to 20. Taking 2, going to 18, back to 21. Lightning Helix. Path is an interesting one. But now you're kind of seeing why I don't like Path in these creature-based matchups, because if you're not leveraging a creature beat down, it really doesn't do you any good. Like, sure, we could maybe get a Snoop or a Sling-Gang Lieutenant, but you know, I'd much rather have a bolt in my hand right now. Or some other burn spell. Take point of damage I really don't want to take. Okay, we need a little bit more gas in the tank. Okay. Alright, Sanctifier is not terrible. What's their opponent getting here? Sling-Gang Lieutenant's basically GG. Oh. This matchup is longer the game goes, the worse this matchup gets. Yep, Sling-Gang Lieutenant. I could bold it in response, but I really think they should be attacking. I think our opponent should be attacking. Like, I know they have the inevitability-ish, but well, if they're just going to chain Lieutenant into Lieutenant, I don't know that we have a real prayer here. Kiki-Jiki the Mirror Breaker. That's a terrifying card. Still think we go face with all of our burn. We hold path for Sling-Gang Lieutenant when they go to target it. And then we might have to bolt Kiki-Jiki the following turn. Now they have to decide how much they want to sacrifice. Opponent has played this well, but they got a little too okay, what are you matroning for? Another Sling-Gang Lieutenant? Oh, I don't get around the life gain. Not at all. Just have to bolt this Kiki-Jiki. I'll have to bolt the... Sure. So we'll have to bolt the Sling-Gang in response to the trigger on the stack, otherwise we're just dead. As is, they can drain us for 4. But this is why I said they should have been attacking us, because we'd already be dead if they hadn't See, I don't think you sack the Ignoble there. I think you keep the Ignoble around simply because it can block Sanctifier. That goes to 3. Okay. Lightning Helix, please. Something. Alright, that's a start. I haven't seen any Rakdos Burn lists, but I did a little bit of work on one myself. I think it's fine. I still think Boros is the better version. Simply because the white cards are really kind of hard to get around. Seriously? Okay, Harbinger. If they have a third Sling-Gang, there's nothing we can do. But even something like Ringleader is going to be difficult to overcome. You can't beat 3 Sling-Gang lieutenants. It just doesn't work. Yeah, opponent just takes damage and now we're dead. Yep, hard to beat triple Sling-Gang lieutenant. Just simply is. We're on the play this time, which is nice. Oh, I'm sure. It's a talking point. Rakdos is a reasonable deck at times. I've played a little bit of it here and there. I really don't think bumping the knight and like a card like Rakdos Charm is worth the... Obviously, this is an easy keep with... Even with 3 lands, it's got a bunch of burn in hand. You're on the play, so it's a little bit easier to try to burn your opponent out. But still not as easy as it once was. Seriously? Did somebody do well with goblins this weekend or something? No, it's just not. Like, even over time, I've messed with probably all 5 colors of burn, including the Naya variants. It's just not worth the... Get in with Swiss Beer here. It's unlikely they'll block. Then play Eidolon as a follow-up. Like, I've even played Is It Burn, just as a joke, mainly during the Oko time frame. And I just passed through my turn there. Not what I intended to do at all, but... Okay, so they've got a War Marshal. Hopefully they don't have any more mana. And... Okay. Yeah, I've seen prowess starting to pop up a little bit. I haven't really gotten back into the lists and such. I know, like, I used to play quite a bit of Is It Prowess back in the day. Back when Fae, Sprite Dragon, and Stormwing Entity. And then I think the deck really kind of fell out of favor when Murktide and Ragavan were printed. But I have seen it starting to post a little bit of results, and unfortunately I don't have mana traders anymore, so I can't like experiment with a bunch of decks. Ledger Slayer versus Sprite Dragon. I haven't actually stopped and considered what are the good cards in Prowess right now. I think we're going to sideboard a lot of the same way. I still don't know that I really want Path, but I think it's a necessary evil here. Even though Eidolon was okay in that game, I don't think I want it this game for the same reasons I've kind of discussed Boros Charm once again. Yes, it's the most raw damage per card, but doesn't interact with creatures. This hand is just bad. We have 2 burn spells, 2 paths, and 3 lands. Just, you can't keep these hands. You cannot play control in this matchup well enough for that to be it. This hand is much more interesting. The question becomes, what is the pitch? Is it a Helix, is it a Blaze, or is it Sanctifier? I think it might be Helix. This is actually a tough one. Let's throw that up on... save this one for later. Yeah, I think Helix might... The problem with Blaze is you really want a 3rd land guaranteed for it, and you really want to play Sanctifier if they go like turn 1 Vile, turn 2 play nothing, which they could. But I do think you're right. I do think it is Helix, but it is close between it and Sanctifier. They're going to go Ignoble, aren't they? Nope, he's a Vile. Alright. Well, Swift Spear is interesting. So as far as is it prowess, I don't know how much of the deck. Like I said, it's been probably a good 2 years since I played it. I'm not sure if card selection is better than this is an interesting one. I think I go with Swift Spear. Hopefully they don't double block and put me to the test. Okay. This is kind of the best case scenario for us. Now I still get to run out Sanctifier here. I don't have to make a choice of saving Swift Spear or trading for Gobos. Matron for Snoop. Snoop D-O-double-G. I know that was a terrible impression, but just do this. Do the combat thing. Unfortunately, we just gotta let this Swift Spear go, because I can't... Unless they play like something stupid like Munitions Expert here. But we gotta hold up removal for that Snoop, and they know it. This immediately puts us to the test. We could wait till their draw step, but I'm not particularly interested in playing those games. They could easily have Boggart Harbinger in hand, which seems quite likely. Okay, there's the Horde Master, which is fine. I'll just ward it. Okay, you may cast that card until the end of your next turn. Good to know. So if I were them, I would start attacking, which is no mistake our opponent made last game, or last match, but I don't think in the end it mattered because they had so many Sling-Gang lieutenants. Alright, so start by doing this. See if they have like another Rebel Ball or something to respond. Guess they can't with that on top. Enters the exile zone. Okay, string ability. What got exiled? No, we gotta go face because they could easily have another Goblin to Violent and just be wasting a burn spell on a token. Why would you Violent now? That makes no sense. So you're gonna get Sling-Gang Lieutenant, which is whatever. You need to do this main phase or you're going to get blasted into Kingdom Come. Okay, whatever. Okay, they're main phasing it, which is smart. Sad part is if we had one more burn spell, we would have gotten it here. But we don't. And our opponent knows it, so we're just dead. Move that to 5, Violent Kikijiki, and then go nuts. I do wonder, though, has Goblins been doing well this weekend? Because back for match number 3. I think this hand's obviously a dice roll. We need a second land for this hand to be good, but I do think it's got enough going on that we keep it. Obviously lead on the dual land because we have Sanctifiers in our deck with a Snoop Dio double G on top. Land into... okay, that tells me you have Tarfire. Good to know. Tells me you have Tarfire and you have no other painless red sources. Okay. Oh, they just have Fatal Push, sure. Not really punished at all. We knew they had it, so there's no playing around that particular removal spell. They were going to get something. Land, please. Land, please. Okay, I'm just going to deal with you right now. Obviously, if they have Sling-Gang Lieutenant, we're in trouble, so we're just going to hold back. No reason to attack. We already know they have a Fatal Push that's just going to kill this Goblin Guide. Oh, a little bit, but this hand had enough going for it with a land drop situation that I was fine giving them a land as long as this Goblin Guide did, what, 4 damage? So, obviously we have the combo covered. The only thing we're worried about is Sling-Gang Lieutenant, which they could obviously still have in hand. Going to put a stop during our draw step, just in case. Right, church wrong draw step. So we know their hand is Bloodstained Mire, 1 unknown. kill the Snoop. No sense in screwing around with the combo. I guess we could have waited for them to get Kiki Jiki and then kill it in response, but if we draw a land, we win. If we don't, we lose, basically. Alright, as far as a non-land draw goes, that one's fine. Trigger on the stack, we just kill it all. And we got there. One and one against Gabos. Alright, back for match number 3. We are on play. Against hopefully something non-goblin-esque. Yeah. This hand doesn't have as much going for it, so I don't think we can keep the one lander, unfortunately. Basically, we have these 2 spells we can cast, this one if the Goblin guy lives, and then Clunk. So this hand isn't much better, but I think we put back Skullcrack with this hand, because we can't really afford to go below 6. I think I've had more issues mulliganing with a 20 in my deck than I have with 19. Go figure. Okay, so we're up against either Rhinos or Living End, most likely. Could be Glimpse. We should know if we see something like, whatchamacallit, the one land that makes it 0-1. At least with Vial, you have to wait a couple of turns before you get the free mana off of it. And it's not like elementals and stuff that, bless you, not like elementals and stuff that you get the mana free immediately. So, still know nothing. I think we will attack first. Not that this hides much information, because our opponent's not going to have... The only player our opponent might have here is Dead Gone, which it looks like they do in fact have. Which tells us we are more likely up against Rhinos than Living End, obviously. So... just going to go ahead and cast our spells while we can. Well, the problem is when you have things like Risen Reef and Omnath and Renin 6 and all these other like card advantage cards, it's really hard to get punished for them. There are so many ways to recoup advantage. Looks like they're going to ice us. which is fine. We're just going to go ahead and bolt their face. Awkward. Much as I want to play that land, I want to wait until they play the Shardless Agent out. So opponent goes to 6. If we draw a Skewer, Helix, not Skewer, Helix, Skewer, Bolt, or Lava Spike, we could potentially win next turn if they don't have Force of Negation, which is a decent possibility that that's chilling in their hand, but instead we draw another land. Alright. So many things kill us here. If they have Violent Outburst or whatever, we're just dead anyway. Yep, they have the Outburst, so we're dead. Alright, Roiling Vortex is in. Deflecting Palm is a consideration, although it's not the best against them. I believe we saw a Bone Crusher out of them, didn't we? Yeah, we saw Bone Crusher, so that's more of a reason to leave Searing Blaze in. Yeah, Vortex is decent against them, but they're usually ready for it, so it's not like a game breaker anymore. But still fine. Probably actually want to board out my own Rift Bolts as a result. Which is kind of awkward on the mana. It's way too many 2-drops, honestly. Maybe it's just board out Skullcrack, board a couple of these back in. Go like this. This hand is decent, but not spectacular in the face of maybe a Gemstone Cavern. It's a fine card. They just have quite a few outs to it with Vortex, or not with Vortex, with cards like Boseiju and could have another Dead Gone here, which is annoying, but no reason to play around it, or not that we can't play around it, honestly. Okay, they fetch a tap land this time. They did not. Must be nice to have the perfect card both games. Then if they're smart, they will main phase the Fire Ice to kill our Swift Spear. If not, then they deserve whatever they get. Looks like they're going to main phase it. Yep, they main phased it. Smart on them. It's not, this matchup isn't good, period. Awkward. So if we suspend Rift Bolt, we're not using all of our mana this turn. We're not going to be doing anything with Deflecting Palm this particular turn cycle. And Searing Blaze, even if it has a target, is not at its best unless we have another land drop. If we had another land drop, then Searing Blaze plus Rift Bolt is a better play line. So I think we just Helix main phase here to play around something like Mystical Dispute or something along those lines. If they have Force, they're going to get us regardless. So I think we just main phase this Helix. Get the damage in while we can. Looks like we're going to get hit with a Violent Outburst. So I have to play the Eidolon to force the issue. Okay, I feel a lot smarter for playing around a card that didn't seem great for them to bring in, but a card they brought in nonetheless. And it doesn't look like they have Violent Outburst. Because I think you would Outburst there rather than play Mystical Dispute on Eidolon. I don't know, I just don't feel like Eidolon's really worth that much in the matchup. That's like legitimately one of our best draws. That allows us to Searing Blaze at instant speed, which is nice. Yeah, they didn't keep a Cascader. They're gonna have to deploy something like a Bone Crusher Giant here. Yeah, I'm not. Obviously can't fight over that. Well, double Searing Blaze is not good. That is certainly a card that is scary, but less so when they're deploying it to the board like that. Once again, main phasing Bolt because it's just better that way. I don't think they kept 7. I do think they mulled to 6. Or did they keep? Yeah, they mulled to 6. So they just probably kept an interaction heavy hand. Which against Burn is, you know, it's fine. Okay, sure. Land? We have another Force of Negation, Mystical Dispute. Wow, just scoop to the Vortex. Did you need something, dear? My lovely wife in the other room making occasional comments. Gotta make sure she doesn't need anything. Still don't like Deflecting Palm, but I think we're still gonna submit like this. Interesting hand. I do think we keep it. Oh, it did keep 7, so I can only presume we're getting cascaded on 3. Notably, their mana has been perfect like every game in terms of like not taking extra damage, which is kind of obnoxious. But do they have Dead Gone for game number for the 3rd game in a row? Looks like the answer to that is no. Come on, just get your Triumph. I don't know what else you get here. I think next turn we go to combat, attack with Goblin Guide. This is presuming we don't get Ice during our draw step. We go to combat, attack with Goblin Guide, try to draw out a Fire Ice, and then play Eidolon. I think we're in trouble either which way because Rhinos are basically going to blank our entire board. But do what we got to do. Alternatively, we could try to go with double Swift Spear and hope some way they don't have a Cascade spell in hand, and then deploying the Swift Spears is better. But the fact that they snap kept a 7 told me they probably have a Cascader in hand. Okay, so they're getting a land, although it's not a ton of use to them. Yeah, this tells me they had to keep a Cascader in hand. The sad part is I don't think they play that many Triumphs. Them actually drawing a Triumph is kind of bad. I don't know why you would fetch Steam Vents anyway when Triumph's just better. Unless you're like trying to do Blood Moon, but even that doesn't make sense. Land, please. That's... No. They themselves bringing in Blood Moon, not Boros Burn signing in Blood Moon. Like, them getting the Triumph was just the correct land they should have fetched on 1. But now the question becomes is, do I attack at all? Because they get to ambush the Eidolon if I attack with the Eidolon. Goblin Guide's a little more free, I think, to attack with. So, like, if I could guarantee no, they didn't have a Violent Outburst in hand, obviously I would just slam Goblin Guide, Swift Spear, Smush. But I think right now I need to go to combat, just attack with Goblin Guide. Sure, I'm missing out on 2 points of damage, but I do think they're just going to Violent Outburst here. No blocks. What card are they most likely to have here? If they have Fire Ice, I think I'm dead no matter what line I take. If I play around Force of Negation or Mystical Dispute, so my realistic line is either Goblin Guide or Swift Spear plus Searing Blaze. Or alternatively, I could play all 3 1-drops, go to 1? Or no, I wouldn't be able to play all 3 1-drops, huh? Because I would take 2, 4, 6... Yeah, I guess my play is play a 1-drop, see what they do, go from there. I think we're dead to Fire Ice no matter what. That was dumb. I meant to play that untapped. Oh well, now we lose the game. It's because I punted there. That was supposed to come into play untapped, which would put me to 4. I think at this point we just pass turn. Yeah, it's unfortunate. So it didn't matter what we had. We were just dead regardless because they had the Audawaro, which is like the one interaction that doesn't deal them any damage. So, not punished by the punt, but the punt would have, if I wouldn't have punted, then we could have Searing Blaze plus Swift Spear deals them 5. They go to 1. They still bounce Eidolon. It's still correct to know the line you were taking was the right line. But, you know. Interesting night. Interesting night. I usually wrap around 9:30 on these streams because I do have work in the morning, unfortunately. I still kind of like where this list is at. We had a few games where we mulliganed because of no landers. We had one because we mulliganed because of a 4-lander, so still kind of keeping an eye on the 19 or 20 situation. I still like the 3 Eidolons. Don't think I've seen anything that changes my opinion on that. Rest of the list is still pretty solid. It's fairly well balanced, although I am liking these deflecting palms less and less, I've noticed. So maybe I'm supposed to have a 4th Rolling Vortex, 4th Sanctifier in back, or 3rd Exquisite Firecraft or something. So, I mean, variance happens. I mean, you gotta do your best to play around it sometimes. And I think we did a reasonable job of playing around it tonight. It just so happens that we lost to, 3rd Slinging Lieutenant and my opponent having a 1 of Odawaru out of their Temur Rhinos deck, which basically just undid a misplay on my part anyway. So sometimes you have to play the lines you have to try to win, and sometimes you don't. So, but all right, Mormkin, thanks for hanging out tonight. And anybody else hanging out in the stream tonight? For those of you catching us on the YouTube channel later, please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and don't forget to check out the main Modern channel, MTG Nexus, if you like some older Burn content, along with some deck guides and top 5 Modern deck lists every month. And I might get back into doing some Burn gameplay here or there on the main channel. We'll see. But I've been mainly sticking to the Burn once a week on Sunday nights. So, and as always, if you're seeing this on YouTube, don't forget to check out the stream every Sunday night between 8 and 9:30 usually Eastern Standard Time over at twitch.tv MTG_Nexus. And hope to see you for the next stream. See ya.